Hello lovely people, Sheena here. I thought we could make a card together using the Papercraft Society box today because there's so much you can do in this box. It's packed with really, it's all about the teaching and the learning and the getting comfortable with a water-based colouring product, how to use it, different techniques and how to mix colours with it. So all those things we're going to try and put together into a really simple but effective card that I'm sure anybody can do. You're just going to be able to follow along and you're going to get the same results. So it's really straightforward. We're going to go through it step by step. But the first thing we want to do is take what we need out of the box, which I've already done. So this is the Papercraft Society box. Love the colour, by the way. And what I need out of there, I've got my little reference tags, but we're not going to use those for the minute. We're going to pop those to one side. The booklet's there for inspiration, of course. Look at there for techniques and inspiration from my team and myself. But in the wallet, we're going to need to take out your 2 sets of stamps. So we need those. And always, every time, we're going to use the recipe booklets to remind us what techniques we can do. So, for example, salt technique. We've got the blending with glycerin technique for bleaching. So we may do a bit of for bleaching, a bit of salt technique in this project. But as well, once you've created your colour chart, that's there for your reference. That's to remind you how you got there. So what you've got on here is the recipe, how to get that. 2 yellow, 1 cyan gets me that colour. 1 of each gets me this mid-green. So that's there to reference all the time. That would be handy if you've got a laminator. I would laminate that, by the way. Once you've got it all filled in, mine still have got a few to do, laminate it and keep it nice and tidy for future reference. This box, as I said, is all about learning and empowering you to feel comfortable with the techniques, the mixing, the blending and everything that you need. So first of all, let's gather what we need. Stamps, both of these. We need, you need your inks, which come in the box, which are these little guys here. We need the brush that comes in the box. You're going to need your pipettes. What else I've added to this is I've added a VersaFine Clear Distress ink. Oh, also, of course, the palettes to put the inks in. This is all included in the box. The things that I've added is a VersaFine Clear Distress ink. I've got some embossing powder because I'm going to emboss with that. I've got a black soot distress ink and a blending tool. And I'm also going to add a gel pen. Whichever gel pen you use, whichever one you find works for you, it's all good. And that's about it on tools. But what I'll do, let's get this set up, let's get the ink out. Let me show you how we're going to get that ink into these little wells, and then we'll get ready and we'll start with the project. So let's pop all the things we need to one side like that. And oh, and also a stamping platform, I should mention. Whichever stamping platform you find is the best for you, or block or whatever you use, that's also, obviously, we've got stamps, you're going to need some way to stamp them. So these 3 little pots, I've used these a few times, believe it or not, and they're still just about full. They go so far. Now, what you're going to do, here's how you're going to use these. You're not going to use them by leaving the lids off and just dipping your brush into here or anything. What you need to do is take the lids off, take the little stopper out, get a pipette, make sure it's clean, and charge your pipette. So bring it up, drop a little bit out. That there now is going nowhere. That's safe. We're going to pop that. That can literally sit there. And to keep things safe, because I'm the messiest person ever, if it's going to be spilled, I'll spill it. I'll trip over it. I'll drop it. It's just it's a skill. I'm really good at that. So that's one. And we're going to do the same for all of these. We're not going to pop anything in the mixing trays yet. We're going to do that together shortly. But first thing we're going to do to get set up, and this is important, and I talk about this in the little instruction book that you get with the Papercraft Society box. Getting everything prepared, keeping everything tidy, getting your workspace set up is just as important as starting off. You need everything there, and also make it a habit. I'll show you the next bit once we start playing where I always have my water, always have some kitchen paper at hand, and before I even think of picking up the paintbrush. So, right, that's there. That's going nowhere. And by the way, if you're wondering about all that in there, thinking, wow, we're using all that for this project. No, we're using drops. And what's left in these little guys is going to go back into the little bottles when we're done. And you'll be surprised at how much will go back in there. So, we're all set. And we're going to start mixing some colours. And then we're going to start playing. That's the next stage. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to mix this colour ready to start playing. So I have the 3 colours here. So the first one I want to mix is I want to use just some cyan, just some pure cyan, because I think that'll look really pretty. So I'm putting 3 drops there. Then I'm going to mix the dark bluey purple. So let's put 1, 2, 3. Let's pop 3 drops of that. And maybe 1 drop of the magenta. Now, if you're wondering where I'm getting this from, this is where I'm looking at my card here. I'm using my reference card to keep me right. So 3, 2, if we have it equal, we're going to get that purple. Let's make it just a little bit more blue. Let's put 2 of those to 3 of the blue. And then we want to make some green, a greeny colour. But if I want it more bluey green, I'll put less of the yellow and more of the cyan. So let's pop 1, 2, 3 of that, and let's pop maybe just 1, and then we'll test it and see what we've got of the yellow. So you've got your flat brush in your kit, but we're going to use that to create the background shortly, but I'm not going to test the colour with that because that'll pick up too much of my colour that I've already mixed and I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to use a small round brush just to check out the colours. I thought, yep, that's the cyan, as we said, that's just that plain bright blue. This one will smush together, see what we've got. We should have a dark blue or a purpley blue in here. Oh yeah, pretty, that's lovely. Oh yeah, look, see now I've switched it round a bit more. Really lovely dark bluey purple. If you're not sure if it looks really dark on there, add a bit of water, pull it out, and then you'll see the colour a little bit clearer because it's so concentrated. And then the last one, we should have a nice green. Yeah, lovely, gorgeous green. So that's what I want. I don't want a yellow green. I want it more of a kind of a cool green. So more blue means it's cool. Blue is a cool colour. Yellow's a warm colour. So that's how we talk about warm and cool colours, and you just vary them like that by adding more or less of one or the other. So the next thing is I've got some of the textured card here, and I'm going to make things easier for myself by taping it down. You don't have to tape it all around, but if you just anchor it down on a couple of sides, it just makes it easier when you're adding a lot of water and a wash to the background. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be adding quite a bit of water to this. So I'm going to anchor that down there. And I'm not worried about it being super straight and super tidy at the minute because we're just going to pop some colour down. Now, to create this background, I'm going to use a couple of things. I'm going to use mostly the flat brush and also a little guest appearance by a little bit of a really dodgy bit of sponge here. Kitchen sponge with bits pulled out of it so that it's a little bit more irregular. So first thing, we're going to wet the background. Now that's going to help you get more even wash, and it'll let one colour move into the other without as much of a kind of a mark. You'll get a nicer transition. It's wet into wet technique. So again, if you look on your little cards, all of this will be apparent. So it's all about just learning these little techniques and make your life easier. If you know what you want to achieve, these things absolutely help. So I'm not going to have it super wet because I don't want to dilute these colours too much. I want them really strong. So I'm going to start at the top with this purpley gorgeous colour, and I'm going to sweep down and continue sweeping down. I want this sky quite dark. I want it really moody. And then I'm just going to pick up the pure cyan there. Look at how gorgeous and bright that is. Beautiful. Maybe go a little bit more into that cyan, into the purple, and we should get more of a dark blue, then into the purple. Then I want to use this cyan at the bottom, but pick up some of that greeny colour so that we've got that oceany kind of greeny kind of vibe going on down here. So that's about where what I'm thinking is I'm thinking of kind of a horizon line about here. and the transition from the greeny to the bluey for the sky. So I'm happy with that. What I'm doing, can you see I'm cleaning this brush off? And then I'm going to take the side of my brush and I'm going to drag it across like this with a little touch of water in it. Just keep cleaning it and drag it across. And what I'm doing is I'm creating highlight on the water and a straight horizon line. Just like that. Just by using the brush like that. And keep drying it. And that's fab. So that's what I want there. Then the next thing is I want to make some little ripples in there. Some little highlights and things going on. So just by continuing with this flat brush and pushing it down and lifting it up, you're going to get the look of waves happening in your sea. Just gives it a little bit more interest. And the more you do, you can play around with it a bit more and a bit less if you want, but that's enough. That's great. That'll create the sea there. Great. Now I've got a sponge and I'm wetting it and blotting it out, and I don't want it too wet because if I have it too wet, it's going to dilute a lot of what's going on with the colour. But I just want a little bit of moisture in there just to push the paint around, to give it some texture, to make it look like it could be northern lights going on, it could be stormy clouds, it could be snow, it could be a lot of rain going on in there. Just makes it a bit more patterned, a bit more something going on, like it's something brewing. Okay, stormy skies. Right, now it's important we stop there for a sec and we dry that. We need to dry that. When you get what you want, you're happy with what you've got, get your heat gun on it and dry it. So you may hear me be able to talk while I'm doing this. If not, I'll just be quiet. So we'll continue with that. I'll shout up and hope that you can hear me and think of anything else I might want to tell you. Now, so what I am going to tell you is that we're going to darken this with Distress ink shortly. So it's not as stormy as it's going to be when we're done, but it's enough right now for us to start playing with. So by drying this, we're going to flatten the card out again. If this lifts up, it doesn't matter now because I'm going to pick it up in a minute and dry the back of it and take that off, because we've got this tape off, because we've got the majority of the messy stuff done now. That was the big thing, was getting this colour on there with a lot of water without having to get it all over our hands and get fingerprints at the side of it. And that will do that nicely, thank you very much. So I'm going to pick that up, dry the back of it. Careful when you do this that you don't pick up any ink on your mat, on your glass mat, because you'll transfer it to the front of your card. And it's important this is really well dry for the next bit. So by drying the back as well, what you're going to do is you're going to flatten out the card, because all the moisture kind of moves from the front to the back, and then it'll move from the back to the front, and then finally we'll get the core dry as well, and it should hopefully be dry all the way through. I'm going to stop that there for a minute, and I'm going to remove this tape, and then I'm going to wipe this area because I am conscious of the fact that I'll probably pick some of that up onto my card. So I'm going to dry it, and then we'll continue drying that just a little bit more. And that should do there. That should do nicely. I think we're fine to work with that, because the important thing is that that was dried, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp on this and we're going to emboss it. So if there's any moisture left in that background, it's going to transfer to the embossing powder, or cling to the background. So the stamp we're going to use is this lighthouse stamp here. We're going to use this one. So I'm going to take this, that one there. We're going to take this from there, get that ready. And I'm going to get my stamping platform, pop this in, like this. and just the card's really wibbly wobbly, so make sure you get it anchored down quite well. This is important, this next bit. We want to use an anti-static bag. I've got quite a few, and this one's really old, but if you haven't got an anti-static bag, a little bit of corn flour with a bit of cotton wool ball, or put it in a sock, preferably one without a hole in the toe, and just tie a knot in it, and that'll do the job brilliantly. Not talc, because talc's got moisturiser in it. It smells nice, but it leaves something else behind. It could leave a little greasy kind of residue on there. So what I'm doing, can you see this line on this stamp? This line, it's easier if I show you here. That line there, right, that's the horizon line, and we've created that horizon line with the brush, have we not? So what I want to do is I want to try and get that positioned so that it's in sync with what we've got on the card. It matches up, so that there, and make sure it's straight too. Hopefully we've got that there, and that should work. I'm put my head over the top there. I think it's straight-ish now. Yeah, that should work for the card. So that's the whole point. We've created that horizon line, and we're matching it up with a stamp. So what I'm using now is I'm using some VersaFine clay, and I need this, I want this really black, I want this really, really solid. So I might go over it a couple of times to really get that colour transferred well without any breakouts in there. See, I don't want that, I want that solid. Even though it looks quite good, because it could be like the texture of the foliage on the side of the, you know, of the little cliff faces and the little rocky kind of mound there that we're on. But I'm going to do one more time, that bit there, and I also want it nice and wet because I'm going to emboss it, because again I want this to really, really stand out and you know, have a lot of impact. And by popping some embossing powder on it as well, that should do the trick. I'm going to pop that to one side, I'll clean it up in a minute. Next thing is I want some card and my clear embossing powder. Now the VersaFine clay is not it's not an embossing ink, but because it's oil based, if you're quick, you can get the embossing powder on there, and it should hold it, and it has. Don't flick it or anything. You know, there's no need to flick it, the back of it, because you know, you're just going to flick all the powder off. Just give it a little tap, and that will work very nicely. So just a nice quality clear embossing powder, do the job brilliantly. I'll put the top on in a minute. Back to this. And then we'll heat set this, and then we can continue playing. So now that's really give it more impact. It's standing out even more against that card. So next thing we're going to do is, I think I'm at the point now where we could trim this down. I'm going to square it up, trim it down, and get it so that it looks nice and neat. So the first thing is I'm going to trim to the side of this image here, because you don't want it just stopping in the middle of nowhere. All right. We can measure this, we can measure it later and get it all squared up properly, but for now this will work nicely like that. And it's amazing how all of a sudden it starts to look so much better once you get that trimmed down. Yeah, see, we've got the look of the sea, we've got the colour change there. Yeah, it's looking as planned. Right, so if you're bothered about that little line just stopping there, you can get yourself a permanent marker. What size is this? And just go ahead and just continue just across like that. Just all you can do. Then you've got that continuing to the thing. You can also, if you want, continue some little bits like this. If you want to put more little rocky mounds and have it so that you've got a bit more going on. Here, same thing. I didn't mention this at the top of the demonstration, but it's another optional extra. I like to keep adding bits so that you can see you can take it as far as you want. Take it and do more or less. It's up to you. It's your call. It's your project. However much or little you want to push yourself and learn and embellish, that's all good. Okay, so now we've got a little bit more, and it's kind of like blends it in a little bit more. The next thing we want to do is we want to put some white highlight on this and make it look like this lighthouse is really you know, putting some light out there. So I've got lots of different whites here that we can use. So you know what it's like with gel pens. Sometimes they want to play nice, sometimes not so much. So I usually try one, and then when that stops playing nice, I'll use another one. So what I'm doing is I'm just popping little lines on this, and you'll find it as if there's moons just catching. You'll see there's little indents in here. You've got little windows and things. If you pop the gel pen in there, I'll hold this up so you can see. Just fill them in. Fill the little windows and fill the little highlights in. Imagine the light is coming from here, okay? And so by going over like this, we're just reinforcing a little bit of detail in there, putting some light on in the windows, as I said. Put a little highlight on the roof. So can you see how much more detail that's getting now? I'm going to do the same on the rocks. So we'll highlight these rocks here. Pick them out. And along this bit here. So what I would say is go with the gel pen that's playing nice on the day. This one seems to be playing nice. Oh, they do, and then they decide, no, not playing anymore. If the card's slightly damp, it just stops the gel transferring, doesn't it, as well? Yes, we know. So we've got that going on. Now, the next thing, we're going to continue with that, but we're going to put some highlights in the water as well, because we want it to look like the night time and the moon might be light catching, and especially here where you've got breaking waves and things. So look, I'm going scribbly. I'm scribbling. I want it to look a bit more turbulent along the side of here. So just scribble with your gel pen. So the silk cards, the stamps are simple. These silhouette stamps, again, are all chosen for a purpose. The purpose being they work just by stamping them, but they give you a foundation on which you can build your skills and improve and get better, and you push yourself a little bit more every time. I've been doing that with painting and colouring lately in my spare time, just in the evenings, just, you know, trying different techniques, things that, you know, I know I can do. What's the point keep doing what I know I can do? So I'm doing things that I think, well, how do you do that? How does that work? What do I do with it? How do I get that technique? What's that effect all about? So look, see, now what I'm doing as I'm still scribbling, and I'm scribbling thinking of some waves. You know, we did those bigger waves in the foreground. By scribbling, it looks more like it's the waves are kind of crashing, and you've got the breaking a little bit. I've got a bigger gel pen, a bigger like a felt tip nib as well. I might try as well. But just keep scribbling and scribbling. If you want it whiter, do more scribbles in that area. So if you're colouring it in, but you're not making it completely white, because you want that to look like you've got that something going on with a you know, it's like about the contrast. If you do it all white, then it looks like they're not really waves. It's just become, you know, all white again. So it's about leaving some bits and adding some bits in. And if you use your little bits that you picked out as a like a guide, as something to follow, then that'll work great. So I'm happy with that. Looking good. Next thing we want to do, we want to make a beam out of this lighthouse. Now, if you haven't got a ruler at hand, I think I had some I've got some little stamping platformy bits here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine the light on the lighthouse coming along like this. So I'm just going to use that. I'm going to look at it so that imagine the light's in there, and I'm going to, that's weird, you put it on and then you put it on again, it lifts off the bit that was on the first time, like that, and then maybe like that, and that will serve as a kind of a guide where I want this light. Now, I said about that lighter, that other pen, this one's a little bit whiter, and yeah, I think I'm going to do that there, like that, a little bit lighter there, and there, like that. So I can leave that like that. See this felt one, these are really good. Or if you've just got a gel pen, you can actually use just water and your gel pen when it's still wet, and drag it out a little bit. Okay, and that's because basically light's going to travel in a straight line, isn't it? But that there has given that a nice glow, like as if it's actually, you know, putting some light out there. You make it a little bit stronger if you want, your call. But we've already got a much more kind of sophisticated image there, just from what we've done with a really simple techniques. Bit of sponge, the flat brush, and you've even got like a spray going on here. It's really nice. I'm really happy with that. So next thing, make sure this is dry. We're going to bring in some distress ink and a blending tool. And you're going to, by making this dark around the outside, this is important that this is dry. If you do this and the background's not fully dry, it'll grab the ink and you won't get a blend. It'll be just splodgy, blotchy. And the reason this works is because the ink has got it's a long open time, is the technical term. It's been developed with distress inks to stay wet long enough to sit on the surface. So you're pushing it and you're blending it on the surface of the card. It's not going into the core of the card, it's sitting on the surface. And that means you've got that ombre effect. You can push it around. If it goes into the core of the card, then it's stuck. It's kind of like blotting paper. If you imagine, you know, kitchen paper, blotting paper, it grabs it. It goes right into the depths of that bit of paper. And that's not what a good blending card will do for you. It needs to be dry. It needs to have not a lot of chalk in it, which is again why this one's a great one. And again, if you've got water on there, the water's already seeping into the core of the card, and it'll just grab the ink and go, thanks, come on, join me. Yeah, they can't move you. We shall not be moved. She's going to try, but she's not going to work. It's not going to work. So can you see how now, even when you do this, when you go over, it still shows the texture underneath. You still get that light and dark showing underneath. But now that looks like it's night time. It's definitely in the night time. So that's one there. This is the one I did earlier. So every time you do them, are going to be slightly different, a different colourway. Used a little bit more white on that. The gel pen showed up a little bit more. I think I might have used this Signal one, which is a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit stronger white than that the Sakura. But your call, just if you want to put it, you can put it in later, a bit more white. Make those waves breaking a little bit along here. Make it look like you've got something going on along here. The little these breaking back there. Yeah. More. Remember, we want this really quite stormy around the rocks, and a bit more prominent on there. Yeah, this one, you see, it's a thicker nib, and it's just putting down some more white. So that there, where we're going to finish that card off is, we would pop it on a little bit of just a black mat like this. Stick that on there, thus. So you've got a mount on there. Pop that on there and stick it together. Like that will work very nicely. We can pop it on a blank card base. Oh, you know what? They never stay clean very long on the turn out me. All right, like this. That. Now I would normally stand over the top to see if this is square, but I'm going to have to hope that it is, but you'll just get me head in the shot if I do. And then what I've done is I've used one of the wording stamps here, and I've picked an appropriate one, and I've done a little bit of faux stitching along the side. Cut it out of the white card, and that there can go wherever you think you want to pop it. You could pop it there if you want, but I like what's going on down here. If there's less going on in the sky and you think, well, yeah, I really like down here, so I don't want to see that as much, you can pop it up there, your call. But a little bit of tape, pop that on there, and that is your card that we've created, really moody. Oh, I should mention, all right, here's the thing. So there's the card. All this here, look, all this we haven't used. It's so much. And all this in here, this is going to just go back into this. Look, this is what you're going to do. Take the lid off again. Take your colour, all that colour in there. All goes back in. Then you take your pipette, you pop it in your water, and that's it. Just like that. Clean it. Pop the lid on. And you're going to do that with the other colours. All right, thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. I did. And yes, we'll see you soon for another one. Take care, everybody. Bye.